Things I learned from the first chapter of Higurashi, also known as Onikakushi. It's a visual novel, it's still a novel, it still counts. First off, if you move into a town and it seems like people are hiding certain dark secrets of the past of the place, maybe it's about time to start looking for a new place to live. Second, don't bring a high schooler into your murder investigations. That seems like common sense, but for whatever reason, some people seem to think that having a teenager on your side is a good idea. It's not. Don't do it. Also remember, when it comes to an unreliable narrator, sometimes they don't notice when little changes happen around them that could indicate whether something is real or not. So make sure that you remember that all your narrators aren't always perfect when it comes to books and other media. And finally, if you think someone is going to be coming after you soon, make sure you do some long distance running to try to get some exercise in. Wait, has that been there the whole time? That's really embarrassing. Alright, here are lessons I learned from the second chapter of Higurashi, also known as Watanagashi. Trigger warnings from previous videos apply here. First off, twin shenanigans. I called it! And yeah, pro tip, if you're gonna have twins, make sure that their nails are painted for a long while, especially past the mischievous point, because otherwise no one's ever gonna know who's who. Second, small town superstitions are definitely a thing. I've seen it sometimes here in America, but apparently they're also a thing in Japan. Go figure. Also, if you know somebody has done something really, really bad, don't go with them alone. That just seems like trouble waiting to happen. Also, I still really appreciate the after-party segments. I'm glad they're still here. I don't know how long they'll be here, but I am appreciating that little breath of fresh air in between each chapter, so keep it up. Also, apparently Keiichi's just really shy and doesn't want to show people what he looks like, because we still don't have proper character art for him. I said this talk about Higurashi chapter 3 was going to be more serious, so here's the more serious lessons I learned from. First, if you're between the ages of 13 and 18 and you're on this app, and you are dealing with some of the things that Satoko was dealing with, please know that you are not alone and there are people who are more than happy and willing to help you out. If you are in the US and Canada and you're not sure who to contact, the Child Help Hotline can help. They have 24/7 coverage with over 170 languages for interpreters in order to help ensure that the child that you are specifically trying to get help for can get the best care possible. And if you are an adult survivor in the US and UK, Havoka is there to help. The help for adult victims of that. They can help you locate counselors that can help you go through the things that you've dealt with in the past to ensure your safety now. I love you all. Stay safe. Here are lessons that I learned from Higurashi chapter 4, also known as the time-wasting arc. And this really is kind of a time waster. There's not a lot going on here at first. So yeah, sometimes the title of a thing is being pretty accurate. Next, if a tiny child seems to be able to predict things way in advance and those predictions start coming true, maybe you should go back and talk to her more. I don't know, maybe just go and see what else she knows. If you're in a situation that you need to escape out of a place quickly and you need to pretend to be sick, mentioning previous surgeries can probably be of help to you. Next, keep an eye on your surroundings, because otherwise you might miss things going on around you that you weren't even paying attention to. Like that one being involved. And finally, stab-proof vests don't necessarily work with guns! Careful of that! Lessons I learned from Higurashi chapter 5, also known as the eye-opening arc. Uh-oh, creepy kids are doing creepy kid things. Pay attention to the creepy kid, because the creepy kid is gonna do creepy kid things. But seriously, I am loving Rika more and more with each chapter. It's getting really interesting. Also, yeah, twins are gonna twin. Twins are gonna switch places in media because that's what twins do, apparently. And that gets you into trouble. Also, just because your family is very powerful in certain places doesn't mean that they're always powerful and always everywhere. Maybe make some assumptions outside of your family if you think that your family's doing all the shady things. What I will say is that this chapter was very nail-biting, to say the least. Oh boy, I'm gonna get comments, but I don't care. Also, yeah, when your best friend's eyes go all Hawkeye the way that they do, that means that there's trouble. We've learned this for the last few chapters, so that lesson proves to still be the case. Also, creepy bus stops always make things creepier. Lessons I've learned from Higurashi chapter 6. So, hatchets are scary, but a hatchet and metal bat fight. You know, I wasn't expecting that in this, but I should have expected it, and here we are. And it was awesome! I've also learned that it is kind of interesting to be able to see someone's mental state simply by changing the color of the text that a character uses. You don't see that in normal books because it makes a book extremely hard to read, which makes sense, but seeing it in a visual novel was really nice. Once again, Tiny Child does Tiny Child things, but it turns out Tiny Child is mentally at least 100 years old. What? Okay, this is a thing. But working together is awesome and can change the way that things are supposed to be. At least, I think. Also, detectives, do not involve literal children with your detective work. All you do is make them paranoid. Jeez. And finally, don't underestimate that airhead in your classroom because chances are they're actually incredibly intelligent and could destroy the room in 2 seconds. Lessons I learned from Higurashi Chapter 7. Yes, I finished both chapters very quick. Finding out that there's a multiverse and that you keep hopping from one multiverse to the next is kinda spooky. What's spookier is doing this and discovering the reason that you're doing this is because your horned best friend decided that they wanted you to just stick around for as long as possible. Also, it takes a village to raise a child. In this case, a literal village. So when a kid is in need, don't just assume that the sins of their past should carry on to them as well. It's incredibly discriminatory and extremely harmful for the child involved. Also, take your meds! Also, just because you have a victim does not mean that that victim couldn't also be a perpetrator of a crime. People can mask their personalities, especially if they're really, really good at it, so just be aware that sometimes people aren't as nice as you think they are. Also, hoot boy politics! Didn't think you'd get politics out of this visual novel series, now did ya? Politics aren't everything, expect it to show up sometime. 1 chapter to go and 1 more deep dive before we start it, so see you there. Ow, 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 ow! That's Hanyu for here are some lessons I learned from Higurashi Chapter 8. It's always important to remember that someone else's tragic backstory could be today's not so great reasons for doing things. But people usually have motives for doing what they do, so always keep that in mind when you're dealing with someone. Also, the fragments segment was very interesting and different, but I very much approved of that, so it's nice to remember that those kinds of investigation scenarios is still something that I enjoy. But that secret ending, that was an interesting ending. I don't know if anyone else has talked about it much, but in my deep dive video I might cover it more. We'll see. Also, Hanyu's like light purple with the red kimono, how? How do you make that work? I'm trying to make it work on the makeup, but yeah, how'd you do that? But overall, it was nice to see the entire friend group finally getting that happy ending that they so deserved.